Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Friday Reads video for December 21st, 2018. Well, like I promised in my last Friday Reads, I did start this book early in the week. This is Rav Kook, A Mystic in the Time of Revolution by Yehuda Mirsky. But I was finding it really difficult to read amidst going to work. I was feeling way too zombified at the end of the day to deal with the highfalutin exegesis in this volume, because Rav Kook was a very learned rabbi who was dabbling with all sorts of religious interpretation in Zionism at the beginning of the 21st century. At the beginning of the 20th century. And I just figured after a couple of days that I should put this aside and save it for the weekend when I'd have much more time to dedicate to these pages. So instead, I started and just finished this novel. This is Swell by Jill Eisenstadt. It is the final novel I believe I will be reading this year as part of my Jewish fiction published in English and in America in 2017 list, and I'm about to make a blog post about my reading. And I ended on kind of a meh note. I don't know what it is. Well, this is a story about a lot of things, and way too many things, really, for such a short novel. I grabbed it because it's in part a story about the Glassman family, and they're just moving to a new house in Rockaway, New York, and the mother is about to convert after several years of marriage and being pressured by her in-laws. But then it's also the story about the woman who owned the house previously, who was, I would say, was getting near dementia, it seems like, from the narration, and about 9 years prior had been involved in a crime and in fact had committed murder that one of her neighbors knew about, but everybody else sort of pinned on someone else. And then there's a lot of local and national history going on here, like when the story begins with a prologue, it's in the 90s, and this ship of Chinese migrants has washed up onto shore in this Rockaway, New York area, and Rose is involved in a bit of that. And then 9 years later, we're still reeling from 9/11, and so I thought a lot of that stuff was much more interesting than the Glassman story. Not to mention that the intermarriage and conversion story was way too quirky and dramatic for my tastes. I would really love something that's more grounded in reality. I keep coming back to the fact that I think I'd love to write an interfaith Jewish novel, and we have slim pickings, it seems, of meaty stuff. So anyway, and another thing that, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm not paying as much attention as I should, but I don't know if Eisenstadt can really set a scene. Because I was finding myself confused at several points about who was talking and what was going on, and it always took me a little bit to sort of ground myself. But I'll give her a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that was me, but I don't know. I read a lot. I should have confidence in my ability to understand prose, so maybe it's on her about doing a good job with it. So I thought it was engaging enough, actually, this story, but certainly not ending on a high note. Hopefully I'll end my Sammy Rohr project on a higher note than that, because after I finish the Rav Kook book, I have one final book in my 2016 Sammy Rohr list. And it is this book. It is The Rag Race, How Jews Sewed Their Way to Success in America and the British Empire by Adam D. Mendelsohn. His name's right here at the bottom. And I will read from the back. The majority of Jewish immigrants who made their way to the United States between 1820 and 1924 arrived nearly penniless, yet today their descendants stand out as exceptionally successful. Other ethnic groups have prospered in the United States, but none quite like the Jews. How have they risen so far and so fast? Have Jews prospered because of cultural features distinct to them as a group, or because of the peculiar circumstances that they encountered in America? And can their recipe for success be distilled and reproduced by the nation's newest immigrants? The Rag Race argues that the Jews who flocked to the United States during the age of mass migration were aided appreciably by their association with a particular corner of the American economy, the rag trade. From humble beginnings, Jews rode the coattails of the clothing trade from the margins of economic life to a position of unusual promise and prominence, shaping both their societal status and the clothing industry as a whole. In few other areas of the modern economy did Jews play such a central role. But how can we tell that context and not just culture mattered? Comparing the history of Jewish participation within the clothing trade in the United States with that of Jews in the same business in England, the rag race demonstrates that differences within the garment industry on either side of the Atlantic contributed to a very real divergence in social and economic outcomes for Jews in each setting. I don't like some of the back copy for that. I think it's way too general to say, well, all Jews are successful and all Jews came from rags to riches and all of that. I just, those sort of sweeping statements make me very uncomfortable. And certainly make me think I should be doing better for myself economically. But I'm still, as always, very interested in American Jewish history. And I haven't specifically touched on the garment industry in my American Jewish exploits, so I'm curious about that. And I am particularly curious that he also brings in British Jews, so I get to learn a bit more about British history. And hopefully it's not just for the sake of argument and setting up points, but because I worry when things are being set up for an argument that it's being a little bit too doctored, or maybe I'm being cynical or something, but hopefully there's real facts and people to learn about here. And then once I finish that book, I will, hopefully before the end of the year, be posting my final Sammy Rohr backlist video for 2016, where I review the 3 books that I read this month. So stay tuned. That about covers it for me. I figure I should get off this thing quickly because I've been stopping and starting a lot. There's been a lot of honking behind me in the background. I don't know. Meanwhile, I have a 4-day weekend coming up. I have the 2 days of the actual weekend, and then the federal government has decided to close for both Monday and Tuesday, Tuesday being Christmas Day. Unfortunately, as a contractor, I do not actually get to take holiday time for Monday, but I can't go into work either, so it's a vacation that's being foisted on me. But hopefully that will leave me time to get some other ducks in order, including getting down to Baltimore to spend Christmas with my family there, so that's all good. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. For those of you who are celebrating, thanks so much everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.